Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. It's time for another training game. We've been doing our tactics. We've been looking at master level games. Now, let's try and make one for ourselves. A 15-minute game with 10 seconds each per side per move. Let's find a game and have a go. Trying to put into practice that which we've been learning. That which we've been practicing. Looking for an opponent. Hope you're all doing well. Give us a comment if you are, and if you've been watching this video all the way through to the 35th second. We've got a Dr. Mohammed Jahangir who plays e4. We're going with the Sicilian today. Pretty typical, I know. And he's played an Alapin Sicilian. I'm going to play d5 against that. If he takes and I take back, which is going to happen, or will it? It's also an alternate way to actually play knight f6 here, I believe, although he can advance this pawn. So be it. I think the move here is e6. If he takes, I take with the bishop, and I'm getting nice development here. And although I've given a pawn, I'm fairly sure this is theoretical so far, although my theoretical knowledge at this point has already come to an end. So this is obviously a natural move. This would also be a natural move, natural-ish move, natural move. Plenty of things to choose from. Let's not waste too much time in this position. Let's come here. His development is slightly more awkward than mine, despite his extra pawn. And so that's a nice feature of this position. But we're going to have to be pretty clever about how we do things here. I think we want to develop, and we'll see what sort of opportunities come our way. He's a lower rated opponent. That means nothing. 1555 means he's perfectly capable of playing good chess. So I haven't given the pawn away because, he's 1555. I've given it away because I'm aware this is a theoretical line. The problem is I don't know any of the theory. So theoretically, we should be fine here. Question is, will we be able to figure out what the path forward is? Now, there's no checks, there's no captures. Well, there is actually this capture. And if he takes back, then there's a check. But there he can just do something like this, and then I'm just going to be down so much material that is basically nonsensical. But there is maybe this threat, the threat being that if he castles, we can take the bishop, and when he takes back with his queen, we can unpin this bishop and we're threatening the pawn. I think it might be better to actually unpin the bishop first if we wanted to play that way. We could also put the bishop here so it looks at this pawn, and in future we might play the queen to here and use this battery against this pawn over here. So that might be nice, in fact. Maybe we even want to play queen c7 now, then put the rook on this d file. I think those things are all good. If we come here and he castles, then his development is basically speeding up a little bit. What else do we notice about the position? This is a nice square, but it's a shame we can't do much with it. All right, I'm not noticing too much about the position. I do want to castle. I think we're going to want to castle this way. I don't think we're going to want to castle this way. So I think we're going to move the bishop here. And where do we want to move the bishop? I think here. Okay, I'm not going to spend forever on the decision. I think we're just going to come here because we're going to castle, so I don't need to keep the bishop here so that this one stays under. So he's preemptively moved this pawn. Fair enough. Fair enough indeed. Now, how do I want to proceed? Maybe even with this queen move, so that if he castles, I can consider sacking another sort of exchange, bishop for 2 pawns, to then have this position where his king is very open. Not so sure about that. We do have to be somewhat careful. So again, there's no checks. This capture still doesn't make sense for the same reasons as before. At the very least, he drops back and we've just given up way too much material for no reason. So I think let's just castle. It's reasonable to castle. I don't see any other, big threats that we can produce. We still have this move in reserve. We can play it anyway. We can play this move if we want. So we at least have pressure on this pawn and make him think about it. That might not be a bad idea. he might be threatening this move to come in, try and get rid of this bishop. So I think it's reasonable to play h6 so that we control this square. I think that's reasonable. It also, in the future, would restrict his bishop from coming to that square, gives our king some sort of hiding space. Let's play h6. It's reasonable. In a lot of these sort of master game analysis videos we've been doing, and a lot of the training games, I've been trying to focus on my time management and just playing reasonable moves a little bit more quickly. So now I think this move makes sense. I think this move makes some sense. It might also make sense to play this and set up a queen-bishop battery leading with the queen so that if the knight ever moves, checkmate could occur. It's a quiet move. It also means that I potentially could stick a knight here, and if he trades, I can put my my queen here, but he's going to just put his bishop there, and then he would drop this. So, I mean, there is potentially merit in this. There's maybe merit in this move as well. If he takes, I take back. It's hard to say. It's certainly hard to say. I think this move is nice also because it means I can bring a rook to the d file where it opposes his queen. But in general, yeah, it's quite a tough sort of scenario, quite a tough thing to work out. Now, checks-wise, we've got a check. He can simply take in one of several ways that makes sense, and there's nothing there after. If this, are we threatening to take? Well, we are. We are technically threatening that. Having another look, is there anything else we can do? Don't want to spend too much time, so I'm going to do this. Again, it's reasonable to at least have this threat on the board. So, in the future, I could still play this. I could still play this. I haven't done anything particularly irreversible. I don't see any great threats he has at the moment. He probably wants to develop and try and get this knight into this square or maybe this square. So a6 might even be a good idea at some point. But then if he plays the knight here, I can take, he takes, and I win the pawn back. So yes, I gave the pawn, but I can see this position is relatively comfortable for me, maybe less comfortable for him. And we'll see, maybe as the game goes on, it actually gets less and less comfortable for him as long as I keep on playing relatively reasonable moves. And with ideas like this, if I want them, things don't look too bad. I think his bishop will probably come here, where it puts pressure on this pawn, makes it hard for me to move this bishop back. That would have been a nice point to think of earlier, because then I could have put the queen up here where it defends everything. But, not the end of the world. If he puts pressure on this pawn, if I wanted to, I could play b6. There's no reason I would need to do that immediately. He actually comes with the knight here. So where's he coming? Here? So after take, then what? Then what is the question? I could come here if I want to restrict this knight's progress, because then take, and I take, and I've won back the pawn. So this is definitely an option just to improve this bishop. I think that's a fairly reasonable move. If he does something like this, well, I can drop the bishop all the way back, and then this knight might be misplaced in the future potentially. Or I could even, if he comes after me, maybe then this sacrifice for the two pawns may come nice, because then I'm threatening the knight jumps back to prevent mates, but then this comes in as well, and I don't know, I think that could make some sense. So it's reasonable, let's go on with it, and it directly contradicts the play he was trying to get at. It sort of makes my bishop a little bit more active, in the sense that, it was on the 6th rank, now it's on the 5th rank, and it opens up this file for a rook, could land there at some point. But restricting his play and trying to make things uncomfortable for him. If he comes around this way, yes, he's pressuring this pawn. Yeah, that's true. He's also giving extra guidance or extra protection to this d4 square, and he probably would like to push this pawn forward. At the moment, he can't because I just take. But if he does put this here, he kind of is prepared, I think, to play this move, unfortunately. So I wonder then, if he plays this, since there's no real checks worthy of looking at, there is still this capture worth possibly looking at. Because then if he takes back and I take, his king is open. His king is open, but I don't have any direct threat against the king, other than this check, which forces the king here. And then this check, And that's just a perpetual, which, well, at best it's a perpetual if I'm actually calculating correctly. I'm going to have a moment here to have a quick sip of the coffee and keep on thinking. At least I've still got plenty of time on the clock, but not sure I've really loved the position. He jumps the knight in anyway, so here I'm just going to go with my plan. I think I was going to take the knight, and when he takes back, I take back. And I've won back the pawn. I think he should have come here. I think that was a better move. I'm not 100% certain about it. But here I win the pawn back. My bishop still looks good. Yes, he's sort of putting some pressure on this bishop, and he can maybe accentuate the pressure on the bishop. But I can defend that bishop. I think it's fine. I'm just going to win the pawn back here. Another option is still to take, and when he takes back, to take here. And when he takes back, take here, but then my bishop falls. So it's interesting. He is coming after this bishop. I could also drop the bishop back if I want to be sneaky. But no, let's take and take. Let's take and take. Let's take and take. What's he got cooked up here? So we've won the pawn back. We've got more active pieces. Otherwise, it's a pretty symmetrical kind of position. Pawn structure is identical. Material balance is identical. It's just that my pieces are slightly more active at this point in time. All right, so very interesting. Equal position. Relatively equal on the clock. He's got a couple minutes, but nothing too severe. What else do I want to consider here? What would I consider if I were him? There's no checks I would consider. Maybe he wants to, trade some bishops off. That's potentially a move. But it's also possibly a blunder, because if I take and he takes back, do I not then have this check to win the queen? Because it doesn't matter if he deals with the check by moving the king, by taking my bishop. In any case, I then win the queen. So that's a free bishop. Thank you, sir. That's a free bishop. Tactics training coming to the fore. That's a free bishop. That's a free bishop. I don't think I played very well in this game. It's maybe something we could count as a warm-up game. I might play one more after this because this one was quite brief. It's not over yet, don't get me wrong. It will be if he takes my bishop though. In the meantime, I'm threatening his rook. I'm threatening the other pawn. It's not a good looking situation for him. It's no longer a symmetrical position. It's no longer, okay, I'm pretty sure I can take the pawn here. If I take the pawn, have I got any concerns? I don't believe I have any concerns in that position. Again, if he attacks my bishop, I can defend my bishop. I don't think there's any concerns here really at all. To his credit, he didn't take the bishop, but I'm going to take this. And I don't think that I'm missing anything here. I've now got a significant material advantage. An uncontested light squared bishop, which is always nice to have if you can get one. My most shaky element in the position is my queen. It's undefended. He's coming after this, saying he's actually threatening to take. So I think there's a couple easy ways to deal with this. And the method I'm going to choose is probably actually just to move my queen out the way. If I just move my queen out the way, that's a nice way to start. Because, well, it just kind of is. It's just kind of a nice way to start. I could also bring my queen up here though. But it does drop the bishop. This is nice, but maybe I want this here in the long term. So in the last master level game, John Bartholomew was talking about, well, he sort of had a vision for the long term. So what is my long-term plan here? And then he was making moves based on the long-term plan, which obviously it makes a lot of sense to say it. But it's another thing to come up with it and carry it out. So, one thing we could possibly do is drop the bishop back to d5 and maybe tempt him to taking the bishop for the same reason that the check applies. And he can't take the bishop either way without dropping this guy. If I drop this bishop back, he can't take this because, well, I take back and then again, I'm defending the bishop. So actually this is a viable move. I'm also then threatening just to whip the knight off the board. And in doing so, continue trading pieces, which is a good long-term plan here. It's not, you don't want to do it blindly, but what's he going to do with this knight? He can't really put it here. If he goes back, I'm not really afraid of that move at all. Why should I be? Why should I be afraid of that move? Well, I'm not. So I think this is actually a viable move. If he comes somewhere like this, well, then, I can just keep on doing my thing. Another thing I could do is put a rook on the e-file. Because then if he takes the pawn, yeah, sure, I can't take here because he would take my queen. But if I come here and he takes my pawn, well, then I take the rook. And he can't take with the queen because then I would take his bishop. So he would have to take with the knight. And after he takes with the knight, yeah, it's kind of interesting. There's lots of options here. But again, in the long term, what do I want to do? I think in the long term, I want to put a rook here. I'm not so concerned about this. So let's just put a rook here, shore up my queen. Now that my queen is shored up, the bishop can easily defend this pawn. There's no real worries here. Yes, you're attacking this, good for you. I can defend it in many different ways. I can defend it in many different ways. I can even do something like this, attack the knight. And if you take this, well, then I just take this and we're simplifying into an absolutely winning endgame for me. But this is also very nice. If you do this, I'm still going to have to move, however, most likely. Maybe I can get away with something like that in that case and then stick my bishop here. It's getting kind of complex. I don't really want it to be complex. I could even just drop my bishop back here if I really wanted. So lots of options. I could defend my bishop in this manner. Then after something like this, again, there's this move, attacking the queen. That's just nice. I think that's really nice because I'm attacking the queen, he doesn't have time to take this bishop. And because I'm attacking the queen, he can't take this bishop without check and I take his queen. So if I do this, he has to move the queen. He has to move the queen. Question is, where does he move it? Probably, let's say, here, perhaps. And then I can just shore up this pawn once and for all. And he still can't take. You know what? I'm going to do this. I think that's a nice move. Let's put this bishop on this nice diagonal. Let's just harass this queen. Then we'll shore this up. I don't want to do any of this stuff and allow this. No. Using the same sort of tactic, this devilish little bishop just can't be touched as long as this discovery exists. And that's really nice. Okay, so he moves absolutely as he should. He still can't take. Keep that in mind. He cannot take. One thing I could also do is push this pawn forward now. If I just push this pawn forward, I'm just got a nice bishop chilling. He can try and undermine the pawn. However, so in that sense, I don't love that. I don't love that a lot. I could just, continue like this, or I could continue like this. I could continue like this. I think this is actually a nice way to do it. Threatening this knight. Although the knight can jump away with a tempo, so I've got to be a bit quicker here, but I still have to be accurate. Do I really care if he takes this pawn? I just take back, and then once he takes, big whoop. Big freaking whoop. b6 does keep everything nice and shored up. He can't play anything like this. I just simply take. So b6 might be nice. I just don't like that it loosens my knight because my knight loses the pawn defender. So this move might make sense. And after something like this, just b5. And if something like this, you know what? I'm going to do that. I'm just going to do this. My bishop defends the pawn. My pawn defends the bishop. Your bishop doesn't do anything here because my knight defends. If you try and undermine me, I'll just defend. Yeah, I don't care. Mate, what are you going to do? You can't get rid of this uncontested light squared bishop without sacrificing more material. You can't sacrifice more material here. I simply don't believe you. I simply don't believe you. Also, I've just realized I might have had this on the last move. But then again, maybe not. Let me just go back one move here. No, I didn't have it on the last move, but I have it now. And I didn't realize that this was a feature of the position, but I'm pretty sure I can play this move now. Bishop b4, attacking the queen again. Directly attacking the queen. He can't take because my knight defends. And if he moves the bishop away, the queen away somewhere, well, then I'm going to take the rook. So let's just skewer these guys. Let's just simply skewer these guys. Try and take some more material. It's never easy. A chess game is almost never easy. To be fair, yes, I outrate this opponent and I'm expected to win. But as you can see, it's still tricky. And it's not easy. And I could have, I didn't play that well in the opening. I didn't know the opening very well. I knew it was an opening, but I didn't really know how to play it. And long story short, he definitely could have put me under a lot more pressure than he did. Anyway, we'll have a quick review of this game when it finishes, but at the moment his queen is under a lot of fire. It's actually hard for the queen to find a safe square to go to now that I think about it. Every single one of these squares is defended. So he takes another route. He takes my bishop. That's nice. I think I just take back though. And although that lets the queen escape, I just take this and then I push the passed pawn. That's going to be impossible for him to beat. Whereas if I take the rook, yeah, it's still absolutely huge. When he takes back, I take, look, I'm going to take with the passed pawn. It really does not matter now at all. It doesn't matter. Look at the material advantage that's coming. That was a nice move for him. It was a good try. Probably the only try. But realistically, although the queen now has a safe square to go to, or a couple of safe squares, the rook still falls. The material is just falling off the board. I've got this completely uncontested passed pawn already on the third rank, ready to push it, protected by a bishop if I don't even want to take this rook, although I will. This game is over. I don't blame you if you turn the video off now. I'll see you in the next game. Of course, I need to keep playing. And you're welcome to stay around as well. 22 minutes in. I would like to play one more game if there's a chance, if the time permits, but we'll see how long this one goes on for. You can see I've still had to struggle. Okay, he resigns. Good game. Good game. Let's just have a quick look through this game. And see, essentially how things went. So the Sicilian take. Now, normally I would take with the queen, and because he's played this c3 move, it's not too bad to take with the queen. He can't jump his knight here to attack the queen, and so you don't feel too bad about doing it. But I just opted to play it a different way with knight f6, which I think is completely fine. It's a completely legitimate way to play. I'm just trying to move the screen about so that you can see the evaluation bar is perfectly fine from black's perspective. Yes, white has basically the advantage they start the game with. As we continue on through the game, e6 is a good move. You can see it's very drawish kind of position. He takes, I take, he develops. I develop. I don't think there's anything too wrong here. He develops. I develop. Yep, all very reasonable. h3, castles, castles, all very reasonable. h6, reasonable. Queen d7, reasonable. This knight move, with the knight move, in fact, there is now a tactic on the board that I must have missed because it's now very heavily in black's favor. Very heavily in black's favor. So let's have a quick look here. What is the tactic that I've missed? What here is the tactic that I've missed? Is it, I assume, take, take, and take? Just opening this king up. I assume that must be it. It is it. So after he takes and I take back, let's just ponder this position. This knight can't move because there's going to be mate. The bishop can't move just because it's boxed in everywhere you look. The queen, well, it can move, but it's not really doing much useful. The knight can move, but again, perhaps not super useful. Let's see, because I don't really see how we finish this thing off. Is it that we can give a check? I don't think so. Is it that we can jump in here? No, I mean, now it's in white's favor. So this is an interesting little puzzle. Let's see if we can work this out. It's heavily in black's favor. Why? That's the question. Why? I suppose this knight is the only thing keeping white alive because it guards this checkmating square. So what we really want to do is undermine the knight. There's two potential ways we can do that. And of the two, I think this one restricts white because it means he cannot push this pawn. It also means not only are we attacking the knight, but we're also attacking the bishop. So I think this is probably a good move. It's not. It's a horrendously bad move. Throws away a completely winning advantage and makes it into a draw. What about the other square? Well, the other square makes white have the complete opposite advantage. So no, that is not the idea. It's not the idea to get rid of this knight, at least not in the way that I was intending. Is it to take this knight? Well, it seems to be. But why? Well, I suppose it does make sense because previously, on these moves, I don't really understand why. So after takes and takes, can we now come after the knight? Yes, we can now come after the knight. What's different? I don't really know. Well, let's find out. So if we do this, it goes into white's favor. Why? Is it because he takes this knight? Check. No, now we're absolutely winning. This is really tough. I can't figure this out. So, yeah, no, I can't work this one out. A bit stuck. Let's try and look at it a bit more closely. So after he takes, when we take and he takes back, that doesn't work, but this does. This absolutely does. He can't move the knight. I can see now why he's screwed, and he probably has to play a move like this. That doesn't really help. But why this move that's so devastating now, why is it not devastating here? Is it because he plays this move? No. No, absolutely not. I don't understand. If you're looking at this, help me out because I don't understand this. What am I missing? Why is this move not so great? Oh my goodness. He takes the bishop, people. He takes the bishop that's contributing to the checkmating attack. Okay, so here we're doing really well. He jumps in and attacking the bishop. We need that bishop to participate in the attack, so we need to take first, and only then do we come here, keeping the bishop's path open, rather than shutting it off with our own knight. And in this scenario, white looked pretty doomed. Whereas if we go back a couple moves, so after take, we're winning. What else could he try? That's the whole point, is there's not much he can try. If he just does something like this, well, he's not threatening our bishop, so surely now we can jump up here. No? Well, we can. All right, regardless, let's have a quick look at the rest of this game. This was all fine. We missed an opportunity here, but we just developed, and again, reasonable. He jumps in. Take, take, take. That's reasonable. We're looking completely fine. We're slightly more active and we have a slight edge. And here the big blunder, which thankfully we saw. And I think from that point on, we played quite accurately. That's a nice move too. That's a nice move. And that's a nice move. All right, so actually we played that game really well. The only mistake was missing that we could have sacrificed, this idea, which we did see, but we just didn't play. Anyway, let's play one more game, so we'll see you shortly.